I agree with you. What's going on in the hearts of men and women in terms of their response or openness or their election? Again, we have no control over that. I'm just talking about how we approach them with our conversation. And I doubt we would take a very different approach, not talking about approaches, but in terms of actual conversation. So when my kids were when they were going into high school and college, I said to them, look, when you get in a literature class or biology class and people bring up questions about the Old Testament or some of the what may be considered odd stories in the Bible, I said, don't get in a big spitting match with them about this. Here's your answer. You know what? Yes, that's strange. Yes, that's odd. No, I can't explain that. But did you know Jesus believed that? And I just figure if somebody can predict their own death and resurrection and pull it off, I just go with whatever that person says. Now, that's not a convincing argument. It's tethering our faith to the event of the resurrection that, of course, confirmed what Jesus taught, and it confirmed what Jesus taught about the law and the prophets. So again, it's sequential is the difference. And anyway, so I get back to my question. So do you believe anything happened to Peter and John after the resurrection? I mean, because again, I think where you're incorrect or where you kind of smoothed over it, the sermons that we find at the beginning of Acts are all about the resurrection. They're not repeating the Sermon on the Mount. They're not repeating the story of the Good Samaritan. It's you crucified, you murdered, you killed the author of life. God raised him and we've seen him. So those early sermons were all about the resurrection because something extraordinary had happened. So anyway, and all that. I'm not, this isn't new information. This is just what we emphasize and how we sequence it.
Yeah, go ahead,
so
Jeff.
I think I'll work my way backwards, Andy, and I appreciate all those questions very, very much. And I'll just stand on the one point when you say, if somebody rises from the dead, I'm going to go with what they say. I'll believe what they say. And I think this does go back to fundamental principles in terms of how do we approach the world and miracles and signs and wonders. In the law of God itself, we have a standard, a principle by which we're told by God to test prophets and those who claim they're from God. In Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, God even tells his people, he says, even if someone comes and they have signs and wonders, so they have signs and wonders, it looks legit, it looks like the miraculous is happening. He says this, but they lead you after other gods which you have not known. That's how you know they're a false prophet. And God says that you're not to listen to the voice of that prophet. God is testing you to see if you love him. And so God has, even at that point in history, given his people a principle that you test all things, even miracles, by the foundation of God's own previous revelation of himself.
But come on, and the Gospels, look, I mean, this is history. I know you believe this.
Of course.
They go to an empty tomb, they assume grave robbers, and then Jesus appears and their faith comes back to life and their message is about what we've seen. We are witnesses and we have seen it. So
Andy, they were chastised for that. Don't forget that. We're missing that. It's important. And I don't think we should smooge over that.
Wait, they were what?
Jesus on the road to Emmaus with their confusion saying, we thought he was the Messiah. We thought he was going to win there to rescue Israel, all those things. What does Jesus say to them? He says, slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. He actually chastises them, Andy. He chastises them for not believing what? Believing in his own word, the previous revelation of God. And so whatever their confusion was at that moment, Jesus chastises them for not believing what the prophets had spoken about him.
I mean,
I don't get the connection, but but that's not really the point I'm making. But anyway.
Well, and just back to the signs and wonders issue. When you say if someone rises from the dead, I'm going with them. Andy, as well as I know.
No. I'm tying this specifically to the resurrection of Jesus.
I know, and I'm making a point on that.
So what is the foundation of your faith? I mean, why do you believe what you believe?
The word of the living God.
Okay.
For more conversations between Christians and skeptics, subscribe to the Unbelievable podcast. And for more updates and bonus content, sign up to the Unbelievable newsletter.